Hi, I'm going to show you how you can get a swipe button in your iOS Swift application. For example, if you want a swipe to pay button or whatever you want to do when you're swiping. So let's go and dive in. So the framework that I'm using today is called TGFlingActionButton. It's actually just going to be one Swift file that you have to move into your project along with a license. So you want to make sure to review this license and make sure it works for you and your project. Let's go ahead and download this code. So I'm just going to download it as a zip. All right, it's in our downloads. Let's open it up. So when you first download this, you'll see an example project, and you'll also see the TGFlingActionButton.swift. This is the one you'll need, but let's go ahead and open up the example project. It's going to give you a warning because this is from a third party. So these guys already have in their example project a loading indicator, a reset button, and this is actually the swipe button. Doesn't look like much for now, and it's actually pretty ugly in the example as well. Alright, so here's our swipe to pay. Drag that, and it does a funny little animation, and this is their loading indicator. It's pretty ugly, but it's also confusing because there's no title on this button. So let's add a title first. I want to show you how you can get this into your own application. So let's go ahead and do that. When you downloaded it, outside the example folder, you have your license, your README, and your Swift file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder in here. It's going to be a group. We're going to call this TGFlingActionButton. Okay, and I'm going to take the license, README, and the Swift file, and I'm going to drag it into that folder. Let's finish. All right, so now you're following the rules. You have your license, your README, and your actual button now all in here. Let's go over to the storyboard. Let's say we have an awesome app that's already set up and we just need a button. So if you just need a button, let's go ahead and add this button now. Let's say it's just a regular button. Let's say, where should we put it? Center? No, I kind of like the bottom. So let's see, let's make this button pretty wide. Add a little bit of height. Control drag. Leading, control drag, trailing. I like the height, so I'm going to define the height. I want it to be at the bottom, so I'm going to control drag and say bottom space to save area. Alright, so now we have a button that will pin to the bottom, pin to the left and right of the screen, and it's defining its own height, so it won't change. Alright. Swipe for awesomeness. Awesomeness. I don't know how to spell awesomeness. Okay, swipe for a surprise. How about that? So that's what we want our button to say. Okay? Let's see, what color do we want our button to be? We could say a red button with white text. Let's make sure we find white. But that text is really tiny and it's really hard to read. So let's go ahead and make that text a little bit bigger and bold. Here's bold, still really tiny. Here's font size 19, swipe for a surprise. It doesn't look great, but it'll be fun. All right, this is our starting point. Now we're gonna need a new button actually. So let's cheat. Let's go ahead and find a swipe button that we want to copy. Arrow button, royalty free. Let's see if we can find anything. Right arrow. So that was our first requirement for our project. Need an arrow. Let's go and go to our downloads. Let's resize this. We don't want it to be too big. Stools, adjust size. Okay, 128. That's actually really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. We're going to rename this one 7. Well, let's just name it a nice name. Arrow right at 2x. We're also going to name this one arrow right Now what we want to do, this one we want to make it half the size. So instead of 128, we're going to do 64. So now you want to copy both of those files. Just select both and drag it into the assets folder. Now it's automatically going to group them together, the 1x and the 2x. Technically you want to make a 3x. So if you're making a real app, you would want to have the 3 times as well for the high resolution displays. All right, so our next step, we just need to call this a TGFlingActionButton. So go over here, define TGFlingActionButton. Go over to your control panel, image overlay. Now you need to call it arrow right. Now it's going to put the arrow right onto your swipe button. Let's run the project. All right, it looks really funny, but we do have our little arrow in here sliding across with a funny background as well. Let's get rid of that background color. It's not really necessary for our project. Okay. But anyway, if that's all you needed, now you know how you can drag that file into your project and apply it in your storyboard. Now, if you're interested, we're going to go ahead and customize this the way we like it. So first thing, I want to go in here. I don't like the coloring, so I'm going to adjust that. All we have to do, initial state color, we're just going to say clear because I don't want it. And final state, we're going to say clear. Let's run that again. All right, it still had an orange, I feel like, which is odd. I don't know why that's there, so let's get rid of orange, run it again. Excellent, now there's no orange. Now we have a rounded corner button with an orange little arrow. But I'll be honest, I don't like that little animation, so let's get rid of that animation next. So let's find where we're rotating. Here's a rotation. So once it's past the threshold for the x-axis, it's going to run all this code. And I don't like it, so let's go ahead and just delete it. And I don't actually care about the background color changing. If you care about that, leave it in there. But I don't, so I'm going to get rid of all of it. All right. So the other thing you have to do is there's a reset method. So you want to make sure you change that. You don't want it rotating for no reason. I don't need to change the initial state color anyway. So we're going to get rid of both of these. Excellent. Now, just to clean things up, since I'm not using initial state color, I'm also going to get rid of both of those, initial and final. Just try to keep things clean. See if we missed any. All right, it looks good. Let's go ahead and run it. Swipe for surprise. Great. So now there's no annoying animations. However, it would be cool if that button disappeared and you had a loading indicator, and what if that text slowly went away as you swiped? Let's do all of that next. But first, let's start with the easiest. Slowly make the text disappear. Okay, so to do that, we can go back here and look at this. This is when it's not at the final state, okay? Let's define an alpha for how transparent we want our title label to be. Let alpha equal, we're going to take our threshold x and minus our current x position. And then we want to divide that by our threshold. So what this is going to do is when it is at the farthest to the left, it's going to be completely visible, and once it's farthest to the right, it's going to be transparent. All right, now we have our alpha set. Let's set it on the button. Title label dot alpha equals alpha. Okay, let's see if it works. Oh, we need to set that to a type of CG float. So we actually want everything to be floats. Let's convert all of that. All right, so now you can see as we swipe towards the end, it goes away. Okay, so now while we're here, let's go ahead and reset it in our reset method. Self.titleLabel.alpha equals 1.0. Okay, so now our alpha will be reset when we reset the button. So next thing I want to do, I want something to show in the middle when it's loading. So we'll need a loading view. CocoaPods is down. Well, that's a pain, so I don't want to use them then. I believe it's called an NVActivityView. Since CocoaPods is not really up right now, I'm going to go ahead and use the Swift Package Manager. This is the URL we need. Let's go back to our project. And I closed it, didn't I? Project. Go to your main project file, Swift Packages. We're going to add one. There's our URL. Next. It's fine. So I'm going to just take both those and go. All right, so to do this, I'm going to have to customize our button. So I think the way I'll do that first, we'll just add a simple view. So we're just going to call this, well, we don't really care if it's private, but that's how they're doing everything, so we can do that. This is going to be loading indicator. And for now, it's going to be a UI view. And it's fine if it's optional, even though it's going to be there all the time. Okay. Let's go into our draw method. If self.loading indicator is nil, we're going to go ahead and set it up. I'm used to Objective-C, you do like CGRect Bank, I think it was. Still getting used to Swift. CGRect. There we go. Alright, for our X, we're just going to say self.frame.size.width divided by 2. Our Y, self.frame.size.height divided by 2. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to make the height just be a little bit shorter than our own height. Okay, I want about, let's say, 5 pixels on the top, 5 pixels on the bottom, so we're going to take 10 pixels off the total height. We're going to subtract our loading indicator height, half of it. We're actually going to say height width because we want it to be the same. All right, so now we can do the same thing for Y, then parentheses, minus loading indicator height width divided by 2. Put that in parentheses just so it's clear. And all of this is just a big mess because we're not using auto layout in this simple project. Hopefully you're using auto layout. All right, here's our width. Use our loading indicator height width. All right, so now we have our frame set up. For a good example, we're just going to say self.loadingIndicator.background color. We're going to say something crazy like UI color dot purple. Now we can see if it's there. We also want to add it to our subview. So we're going to do self.addSubview, self.loadingIndicator. Okay. And we know it's there, so we're going to say exclamation mark. All right, there it is. Got a purple button in the center, or a view, not a button, excuse me. We're also going to hide it. So self.loadingIndicator dot is hidden equals true. Okay, we're also going to go into our reset method and put the same thing there. Okay, so now we're pretty much set up for that. Now it's going to be simple to switch over and use our loading indicator. So we're going to import it, import NVActivityIndicatorView. Now we're going to say our loading indicator is no longer a UI view, it is NVActivityIndicatorView. All right, so now we do have a different init method. Okay. So what I'm actually just going to do is I'm going to say, here's a new frame. Let's find the last parenthesis and delete that. Now what we can say is let loading indicator frame equal this. So now that's just our frame, so we can keep it. So now we can say self.loadingIndicator equals NVActivityIndicatorView.init. And now they have a new method. We're going to use frame, type, color, and then padding. So frame, we can just say loading indicator frame. Our type, NVActivityIndicatorView. Now we can choose our type here. Now if you're not sure what type you want to use, you just look at the documentation. They're all numbered. Let's see, which one do we want to use here? Which one's fun? Let's see. I'm kind of liking this one. It's kind of crazy. This one's really crazy. Let's do number 7. Number 7. So ball pulse rise is what it's called. Ball pulse. Oops. View type. Okay, we did the wrong thing. NVActivityIndicatorType dot ball pulse rise, I think it was. Yes, ball pulse rise. What color do we want it? Well, it's on a red view, so we may as well do white. UI color dot white. Padding, we don't need any padding. Okay, so now it's hidden, so that's good. We want it to show up right when it's at the end. But anyway, let's set. So once it's ready to reset, we just have to call loading indicator dot stop animating. Okay. And once we're at the threshold, we also want to start animating. Self dot loading indicator dot start animating. Self.loadingIndicator dot is hidden equals false. Great. So now, once we swipe, a loading indicator should appear. But we also want our little button to disappear as well. So what we're going to say is self.swipeable overlay. I think that's what it's called. Swipe overlay dot is hidden equals true. And now in our reset, we also have to make sure it's not hidden. Self.swipeoverlay dot is hidden equals false. Let's go ahead and run it. Now we have our button. Swipe, that's hidden. We have our loading indicator with the ugly purple background. Let's get rid of that really quick. Excellent. So now we have a swipeable button that shows the loading indicator in the middle. So the last thing we need to do is make sure we have it set up to do something. So let's go to our view controller. Let's get an IB action set up. Just call it do something. I want a UI alert. Add action. Now we just add our confirm action. Run. Alright, now we swipe. We get a loading action that doesn't stop until we hit awesome. Then it resets the button. Alright, that's all I have for my tutorial. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you.